Hello, and welcome to Savior Connect today.
where we will be teaching biblical insights from the Word and how they can apply to your daily life. I am Stephen, this is Emily, and let's move right into our first topic. Let's talk about fortune and misfortune. Some years ago, a man in Illinois won a $1 million in the lottery. The story goes that he was so excited, he leapt 2 feet in the air and tipped the store clerk $100. His dreams had come true. He had won wealth beyond his belief. But a month later, he suffered a particularly gruesome death. His good fortune had turned into his own misfortune. The Bible shares with us 4 ways our good fortune can turn into our misfortune. Let's talk about them.
Way number 1, good fortune can cause us to be ungrateful. God's people had been delivered from Egypt and the bonds of slavery. When food ran low, God blessed them with manna from the heavens. However, in Numbers 11:5 through 33, we read that the people complained of God's blessing. Why did you bring us out of Egypt? For there we had leeks, onions, and other foods. God sent a great wind to bring quails from the sea. Yet, even as the people consumed the blessing they had requested, God smote them with a great plague.
Way number 2. Good fortune can lead us to wander astray. God had blessed Abram and his nephew Lot with more riches than the land could contain. In Genesis 13:7 it says, "And there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's livestock. The Canaanites and the Perizzites then dwelt in the land." We have the story of how their herds crowded the hillsides, created trouble between the herdsmen over Abram's cattle and those over Lot's. They mutually agreed to go their separate ways. Abram made his way into Canaan, where God promised him the land as far as he could see. However, Lot chose the fertile plain, casting his tent close to Sodom. In the end, the city was destroyed, with hellfire and brimstone, and Lot and his daughters barely escaped with their very lives.
Way number 3, good fortune can bring about calamity. David was God's choice to be king. He was anointed by the hand of Samuel, killed Goliath with a sling and 7 stones, and was a close companion of the king's son. His future had been handed to him on a silver platter. Even so, in 1 Samuel 21:11 through 13, it says, "And the servants of Achish said to him, 'Is this not David, the king of the land? Did they not sing of him to one another in dances, saying, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s?'"
Now David took these words to heart, and was very much afraid of Achish the king of Gath. So he changed his behavior before them, pretended madness in their hands, scratched on the doors of the gate, and let his saliva fall down on his beard. David was on the run for his life, for the king wanted to kill him. Even the people made fun of him, saying, "Is this not David, about whom they say, Saul killed thousands, but David his 10,000s?"
David became afraid and acted as if he were mad by drooling at the mouth. He had sunk as low as he could go.
Way number 4. Good fortune does not mean God is with us. The northern and southern kingdoms of Israel had turned from God, and vices filled their days. Even as they knew a Jehovah God, they did not know him in their hearts. They depended on their conquest and prosperity for their sustenance. In Hosea 5:6, it says, "With their flock and herds they shall go to seek the Lord, but they will not find him. He has withdrawn himself from them."
Israel is told that when the calamity of Assyria comes upon them, they shall seek the Lord, bringing their flocks and herds as sacrifices, but they will not find him, for he has withdrawn himself from them. God refused to tolerate a marriage of convenience with his people. Proverbs 27:23 through 24 says, "Be diligent to know the state of your flocks, and attend to your herds, for riches are not forever, nor does a crown endure to all generations."
The word tells us not to place blind confidence in our good fortune, for the riches of this world do not last forever. When we base our happiness on our good fortune, we are sliding down a slippery slope that can only lead to disaster. Our happiness is not to be based on this world. Instead, we must base our happiness on God, and then we will find His hand of blessing on us every day of our lives. And that's such a critical point, is to remember, is not what we have in this life that's so important. It's God.
That's true.
We need to base everything we do on Him. Our happiness doesn't need to be whether we get a new car or some new fancy phone.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we do or not, it was beside the point. Now, God will bless us with things when we go to Him.
Mm-hmm.
Not be mistaken with that. He will bless us because He likes to do good things for us. But our happiness doesn't need to be based upon that.
No, think about how often when somebody asks you how you're doing and you feel on top of the world, everything's just going great, you have everything you need, and you're like, I'm blessed. Do you still say that even when you feel like things aren't going your way or you don't have what you need, or what you want? You don't have the newest phone, you don't have the best car that you could drive. Do you still say that you're blessed? What constitutes that blessing? Anything that we get from God is a blessing. So whether your car is a 2004 car or a new car, it's still a blessing. And I think that so often we lose sight of that.
Oh, yes, and it's easy to do so, to become complacent, not think about all the different ways God is blessing us.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a car to get to work? Yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a car to get to the grocery store and back, or a way to get? Maybe you don't have a car. Maybe you live in a region that doesn't use cars often.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you bike. Maybe you take the subway or the train or the bus. Do you have a way to get back and forth? Has God provided you a way to do so?
Mm-hmm.
That's a blessing right there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the resources to purchase food or to get food? Is someone giving you food?
Mm-hmm.
That's a blessing right there. Do you have a house over your head?
Mm-hmm.
Or a roof of any kind?
Mm-hmm.
That's a blessing right there. And even when things are going sideways or can sometimes feel like they're going backwards for you, still be thanking God for those blessings that He has provided you.
Exactly. It goes back to what we were talking about with the Israelites. They had manna from heaven, yet they still complained over what they were getting. What you consider your misfortune, somebody would consider a huge blessing because they don't have that.
And that's very true. It is. We need to be thankful for everything we have and not get complacent or even accidentally or incidentally greedy
Mm-hmm.
and complaining, saying, God, why didn't you give me the latest iPhone or whatever else is that can sometimes feel like it can get a hold of you or someone else. No, why don't I have the latest and nicest car or anything else?
Mm-hmm.
Be thankful for what you do have.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with going to God and saying, Lord, will you bless me with this?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And then often what He will do is He will open up the doors for you, opportunities for you to acquire what you desire.
Yes.
And to do it in a godly manner.
Yes.
And he loves to bless us. He loves to give us
He
good gifts. As it
does.
says in the Word, He does. But we need to be thankful for everything we have as well.
We do.
If someone buys us lunch or dinner, mark that down as a blessing that you've received.
Yes.
If someone buys your gas one day in your car, mark that down as a blessing. If someone gives you a free gift or you get an exceptional coupon for a discount, even a small one, be thankful for it.
Or you get a free cookie when you go to a restaurant.
Exactly. Be thankful for that and say, Lord, thank you for this blessing.
Yes.
And in fact, as I mentioned before, I recommend you get down to the note app or a journal and write down those blessings every time you get one so you can keep a log and say, wow, look at all the things God is doing for me.
Exactly.
And you can see them all there and you can go back and thank God for them and say, you blessed me with this amount. Such a huge blessing. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Lord.
It's a nice reminder when you do start to kind of feel a little bit down because you feel like something's not going your way. And then you look at all the ways God has blessed you. It really acts as a game changer at that point.
It does. Because not only is it a reminder, not only is it uplifting, but when you keep going back to God and being thankful for the things, He honors that.
He does.
And He will bless you with even more when you're thankful for what He has already given you.
Yes.
The same as If you have a child and you give him something and he's thankful for it, you're going to want to give him more. But if he's not thankful for it, you're not going to want to give him as much. And
No.
the thing is, we're children of God. It works this
Mhm.
very similar way with him as well. When we're thankful for the things he gives us,
Yes.
he gives us even more.
Yep.
And that's a key detail there is be thankful for what you have. Make sure your happiness is based not on things, but on God and what he is doing for us and what he has done for us.
Absolutely.
And making sure our focus is in the right place and not on worldly things.
Yep.
Because there's a happiness you get in God that you don't get anywhere else.
And that is so true.
We can get all these temporary highs by going and shopping or anything else, but all that fades away.
It does. Our life with God is eternal. And I mean, I've even talked to people who say that they're not ready to leave this world, and all I can think is, I'm ready anytime he calls me, you know?
Heaven's going to be an amazing place because God
Yes.
is so great and merciful and wonderful towards us.
Yes.
And there truly is nothing better than having God in your life.
That's 100% true.
And once you have God in your life, he brings everything else together for you.
Mhm.
Once again, coming all the way back to our happiness needs to be based on God.
Yep.
And that's what I've strived to do my very best in my life to learn and to do. And once I started doing that, it made a life-changing difference for me. It
It
did.
does. There is a noticeable difference when you are living your life and putting your focus on God, because all the other things they don't matter anymore.
It really changes your whole perspective on life.
Mhm.
And like you said, things that used to be so important, once I put my focus on God, I just shrugged my shoulders like I just did then. I'm like, it's not really important to me. Those things aren't anymore.
No,
It's just your whole perspective on life changes.
it does.
And the thing is, if you do that as well, God will do the same for you. You'll
Mhm.
suddenly begin to realize what's truly important in your life. You'll be able to cast off the chaff, the junk, and everything else you don't need or want in your life. And suddenly things you'll realize you no longer want in your life.
Yes.
It'll make your life more peaceful, joyful. You'll get that happiness you can only get when you're living a godly life.
Yes.
And you will watch how many blessings God will pour on your life as you're thankful for everything he's doing for you.
Absolutely.
So continue to follow those steps. Be thankful and keep that focus on God and watch how your own life change. And don't forget to write it down as you go along. Save it in a note app, write in a journal, whatever you prefer, and keep track of that. And then you can have a written record showing, yes, this is what God is doing for me.
Yep. It can be amazing to visit a beautiful rose garden. The aromas are heady and the blooms are magnificent. However, underneath the beauty is the thorn. Hold one tightly and it will bloody your fingers. However, Jesus is not like that. He is a gentle beauty. His presence is everywhere and he never pricks us when we draw close to him. The love of Jesus is as gentle as the daisy in the field. Let's look at our daisy God.
Let's start with the letter D. He is the root of David. Solomon 2:12 tells us Jesus is beauty. For when winter is over, he comes as a flower, bringing unto us a new beginning. Revelation 5 says, And I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll written inside and on the back, sealed with 7 seals. Then I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, Who is worthy to open the scroll and to loose its seals? And no one in heaven or on the earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or to look at it. So I wept much, because no one was found worthy to open and read the scroll, or to look at it. But one of the elders said to me, Do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals. That passage in the Word reveals his majesty. Paul stood in front of the scroll sealed with 7 seals. And an angel called out, Who can be found worthy to break the seals of the scroll? And there was only one who was worthy, And that was the root of David, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Jesus is the only worthy one.
Letter A. He is the branch of the almond tree. Numbers 17:8 says, "Now it came to pass on the next day that Moses went into the tabernacle of witness, and behold, the rod of Aaron of the house of Levi had sprouted and put forth buds, had produced blossoms and yielded ripe almonds. Aaron's staff budded overnight, producing blossoms and fresh almonds as a sign of God's favor."
Like the almond tree, which blooms in the cusp of spring, Jesus comes to us in the depths of our winter, turning our barren landscape into beauty, for he has his Father's favor upon him. Wild almonds are bitter, for they contain cyanide. Eating even a few can be deadly. However, Jesus produces a sweet fruit. His is a sweet savor of the select tree, for there is no bitter thing in him.
He is our inheritance, and his bounty is found in the fields and vineyards. In Numbers 16:14 it says, "Moreover, you have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, nor given us inheritance of fields and vineyards. Will you put out the eyes of these men? We will not come up." A company of the Israelites complained against Moses and Aaron. In reality, they complained against the Lord. They doubted God's leading, for they had not yet reached the land flowing with milk and honey.
We can understand their frustration, but God's timing is his own. Many years later, Jesus came to us as an inheritance from the Lord. For the lushness of his fields and the bounty of his vineyards are ours for the asking. S. He is a sweet-smelling aroma. Solomon 5:13 says, "His cheeks are like a bed of spices, banks of scented herbs. His lips are lilies dripping liquid myrrh." It speaks of Solomon's love for his beloved is filled with the sweet aroma and spices and sweet flowers.
Ephesians 5:2 says, "And walk in love as Christ also has loved us, and given himself for us, an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet smelling aroma." It reveals that Jesus' sacrifice reaches God's nostrils as a sweet aroma. Jesus draws us in the same way, for he is as a field of daisies, and the aroma of his presence is pleasant to our senses.
The letter Y. He is the 1,000 years of youth that bloom and fall away. Jesus is ever new and fresh for each generation. Psalm 94 says, "For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it is past, and like a watch in the night." The word tells us that 1,000 years are as one to him, and they are as yesterday in his sight.
Still, he continues to draw us with the sweet aroma of his love. If the Father should choose to tarry yet another millennium, Jesus will still continue to be a sweet enticement for 1,000 years to come.
Though the joys of this world have become bitter in our mouths, however, the love of Jesus will always be sweet and pleasant forevermore. And this really touches back on even to the previous topic we were discussing earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure our focus is on Jesus, on God,
Yes.
and not other things of this world.
Absolutely.
Because while we can get pleasure out of different things, that we find the worldly things temporarily,
Mm-hmm.
in the end they always become bitter.
They do.
And like we were just discussing, Jesus, however, never becomes bitter.
You know, that is such a comfort to know that no matter what, he's always the same. There's never going to be any change. It's a constant thing. And, you know, I like to tell people children require consistency, and we are the children of God, so we require consistency. And he shows it even with Jesus. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He is never going to change.
Amen. And I'm glad for it. He is always good. He is always merciful. He is always kind and loving and good towards us.
Mhm. He
It's
is.
amazing. It really is. Yeah. And as he's always sweet and pleasant, as we were saying.
Mhm.
And that's one of the factors that comes into play here is whether you're getting your joy out of a physical thing, a worldly thing, whether it be shopping or drugs or alcohol or spending all day watching TV shows or anything else,
Mhm.
all of those things become bitter. And all
Mhm.
those things have downsides to them.
Yeah, that satisfaction that you get from it is temporary,
Exactly.
and eventually you start seeking something else because it's just not satisfying.
And you will always have that next better thing that you need.
Mhm.
And you may be just watching TV too much, for
Mhm.
example, or watching shows that you shouldn't be watching.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe the things you're doing are not directly sinful,
No.
but they're not the best that you could be doing. When instead you could be spending some time with Jesus and getting a joy that's truly going to be filling you
Yes.
with a sweetness and pleasantness that you're not going to get elsewhere.
Mhm.
And on top of that, it'll help make your time and your day more efficient and more pleasant,
Yes, it will.
and possibly save you significant amounts of money as well. It'll help your entire life.
It will.
And not only that, but it'll also change how you feel and act in your daily life as well, because you will be more at peace. You will
Yes.
have that peace and that pleasantness. It will, once you step out of the worldly things and focus on the godly things, it changes your entire mindset.
It really does, and I'm glad that you worded it that way because there's such a difference between what you find in the world and what you find in God. And until you actually experience time in his presence, it's indescribable to tell somebody the difference. Once you experience it for yourself though, you're like, wow.
And that's a key point, it is indescribable. It's until you've experienced it, you can't imagine
Mhm.
what it's like to get to spend that time with Jesus, to be saved,
Mhm.
the amount of peace that it brings that you didn't even know was a possibility to have.
I mean, the only thing I can say is it's unlike any experience I've ever had before. I mean, it beats any enjoyment that I've had before. There's just there's no end to it. There's no end to the amount of enjoyment you get from it.
And to spend that daily walk with
Mhm.
Jesus, not just say, oh, I got saved once and move on. No, spend your daily life with Jesus.
And that's very key too. Because if you're just like, okay, yeah, I accepted him into my heart, and then you're just trying to continue to live your life as a worldly life, then there's no difference there. You're not going to see any difference because you haven't changed anything.
And that's an important point. That truly is. Because until you give your life fully to God, as you said before, you're still living in the world.
Hmm. And you can't live, as in the world of the world and live for him at the same time.
No. It's important to make sure we dedicate our lives towards those things that are truly important. Jesus, for example.
Hmm.
And it's not like you're having to give up anything.
No.
The things that you will no longer want in your life are things that you'll realize were being harmful to you.
Yes.
And then God will bless you with so much more better things when you trade off those bad things.
I've always, looked at it from this viewpoint. It's not oh, I have to give this up because, I'm a Christian. No, I get to do this instead because I get so much more pleasure in living my life for the Lord than doing that I was doing before.
And God will give you so much more pleasure and joy out of the things that He gives you
Mhm.
versus those things that you had to give up
Mhm.
versus what you would have had before.
Mhm.
Because when God does it and you do it whatever it is godly way, it is so much better than anything you've ever experienced.
Yes.
And it doesn't even make sense, but I frankly think God blesses these things to give us more joy out of them because they come from Him and we're doing them as He called us to do.
Absolutely. And it goes back to what I've said before. We know that everything that comes from God is going to be good. So if he's asking you to, focus on things of him and we know it's going to be good, why wouldn't you do it? Why do we overcomplicate it?
Amen. It's simple. The word is simple. God, we're the ones as people that often make it too complicated. But at the end of the day, God keeps it simple for us.
Yes.
Come to him, focus on him, and do what he says. It's that simple.
Yes, it is.
He doesn't make it hard.
No, he doesn't. He makes it very easy.
Very easy, very simple. So I do hope that you will keep your focus on God. And remember not to try to get your joy from the things of this world, but to get them from Jesus. And it'll be more joyful than anything you've ever experienced in the world, or can ever experience.
Yes.
Because Jesus blesses you and me and all of us with joy and happiness and a pleasantness that never fades away, that never gets old, that never wears out, and never turns bitter to us. We'll never need to seek a bigger high or anything like that. It's once you have Jesus, you have the very best.
Absolutely.
There's nothing greater that you can ever experience or have.
Nope. That's so true.
And so I hope that you will take Jesus into your life if you haven't already, or rededicate your life to Jesus if you need.
Yes.
Because you may be a Christian already. And it can be a matter of just going back to Jesus and saying, what do I need to get back on the path that you have for me? What are those things in my life that I need to clean out that are not of you?
Yep.
As I said before, it could be TV shows, it could be books, it could be words that you're saying or things that you're doing, how you're treating people. It could be places you're going or activities you're performing. Whatever it is, take it before God and just do what he says.
Yep.
And you will be so much happier for it.
Yes.
I've learned that lesson the hard way. I know it works. And I'm looking forward to you being able to do the same. Because God and Jesus, he loves you.
Yes, he does.
And he's going to bless you in abundance. Have a blessed and wonderful day, and we will talk to you next week.
The Savior saved, thy strength indeed is small. Child of weakness, watch and pray. Find in me thine all in all. Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Sin had left a crimson stain, he washed it white as snow.